Avika Zubac had 28 points and 20 rebounds. The stat of the night comes from Clippers guard Bogdan Bogdanovic. He was 8 for 8 from the floor, including 4 for 4 on three-pointers. He finished with 20 points and 7 assists off the bench. The Alabama State men's basketball team won an NCAA tournament game for the first time in school history. A last-second layup by Amar Knox lifted the HBCU school to a 70-68 win over St. Francis of Pennsylvania. Alabama State advances to play Auburn, the number 1 seed in the South Regional, on Friday. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, this is Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, and for over 20 years, Parkside Economic Development Corporation has served Leimert Park and surrounding communities, empowering tomorrow's leaders and changing lives. Parkside EDC has awarded over $400,000 in college scholarships while sharing economic principles of the Big Five of money with students and their families. Parkside EDC partners with organizations like the Brotherhood Crusade to assure our youth have the financial acumen to succeed. Parkside EDC provides families and businesses with financial insights, offering free online, on-site, and on-air B-Warp presentations. The Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Programs helps our community acquire, sustain, and pass down legacy wealth. High school seniors can apply for this year's scholarship awards at parksideedc.org. Scholarships will be awarded at Parkside EDC's Gospel/Jazz Brunch on Sunday, April the 27th. For details, tickets, or donations, please visit parksideedc.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Heaven help the child who never had a home. Heaven help the girl who walks the streets alone. Heaven help the roses if the bombs begin to fall. Heaven help us all. Heaven help the black man if he struggles one more day. Heaven help the white man if he turns back away. Heaven help the man who kicks the man who has a crawl. Heaven help us all. Heaven help us all. Heaven help us all. Help us all. Heaven help us, Lord, hear our call. When we go.
KBLA Talk 1580. Yes, indeed. Say that, Stevie. All right, now I am so pleased to bring into the conversation this morning the director of the Center for Latin American and Latino Studies and the Immigration Lab, a full professor at American University in Washington, D.C. He's the author of Immigration Realities, Challenging Common Perceptions, and also Reunited Family Separation and Central American Migration, Building Walls, the Exclusion of Latin People in the U.S., and more. Dr. Ernesto Castañeda, welcome.
Hi, good morning, Dominique.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. I don't even know where to start. There's so much happening in your field. Your head must be on swivel right now.
Yes, a lot.
Yeah, so I guess, well, I think the latest is that they've now detained this woman named Jeanette Vizquera. She was taken into custody by ICE on Monday. This woman is an migrant activist, I guess, the immigration rights activist. And now she's been taken into custody. I'm confused because I feel like I know this woman was undocumented when she came. I'm not sure if she still is or not. I know she was trying to get her citizenship ever since she came. But the point is, when I say I'm confused, I feel like ICE is taking in people who are undocumented, people who have green cards, and even some U.S. citizens. So I'm not really sure what the policy is right at this moment.
That's right, Dominique. That's a very good question. So first of all, I think people are confused, rightly so, because there was the election campaign promise by Donald Trump and the Republicans that they will focus only on immigrant criminals, on people with a criminal record, and that they will deport them. That was kind of the promise of these mass deportations, and I think some people took them at face value. But as we know from previous attempts at deportations, it's very hard once the ICE are giving quotas or are sent free in communities to find anybody who may be undocumented and to remove them from the country. Most of the time, they're going to find hardworking people, students, women, youth, and they're going to deport them as well. And that has been the case now. We know that only a minority of the people deported or detained are people with criminal records. And why is that? Because if somebody is in the United States and they commit a serious crime, they will be looked at. They will be looking for them, right? The authorities, and then there will be trials, and they will be put in prison like anybody else. So people with an active criminal record in the U.S., most of those people are in the U.S. prisons, or they are in search for looking. They're in lists of people that are searched by justice. So these mass deportations have resulted indeed in the deportation of people for whom the government knows their addresses because they're in some way applying for status, or they have this temporary protective status given by previous administrations, or even is still valid today. And for those people, many from Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua, Honduras, and Haiti, and other countries, it's very easy for the government to deport them if they want, because they know where they live. And once their permits expire, they can try to look for them. Another thing that happens is that with people that are trying to regularize their status, and they're going through the immigration process, they're often asked to check in ICE offices in the U.S. interior to sign that they're still in the country, that they haven't committed any crimes, etc. And we have a lot of testimonies of people that have been going on for the routine check-ins with ICE, and they have not been allowed to leave, and they're being detained and then put in deportation proceedings. There's indeed one person from Charlotte, North Carolina, that they disappeared on the Saturday morning. They went to check in. The family is very worried because they received a call Saturday morning, 8 a.m., and then telling them that they're going to be put in an airplane to Venezuela, and they haven't heard since from that person. She's married to a young woman, a person born in the 2000s, so less than a 34-year-old, a person with no criminal records. They have lived in Chile, in other countries, and they have no criminal records there, no criminal records in the U.S., but they have a tattoo with their name and a little crown on their hands because they thought it was cute, and they put a tattoo. And this person was born in the state of Aragua in Venezuela, which is like, say, New Jersey. And then the authorities confused the tattoo that is not related and the fact that he was born in that part of Venezuela, and therefore they assumed that he was part of the Tren de Aragua. And before a judge, an immigration judge or a criminal judge could say that he was guilty of any crimes or even part of the gang, he was deported, and the family is afraid that he may have been sent along with many others to El Salvador, and there's no list of who was sent, there's no communication. So the person has been abducted, has been sent to another country that is not the country of birth, is not the U.S., and the family has no idea what's happening. So in this idea of taking only the quote-unquote terrorists and the bad guys, they're taking a lot of people that are in the U.S. That are innocents, that are not members of any gangs, and that may even have a permission to be here, and they're also being deported. So it's something very worrisome.
Yeah, so much to unpack in what you just said. Of course, I was reading how the Tren de Aragua the gang, I guess, Venezuelan gang, doesn't even use tattoos. Like it's one of the groups that tattoos is not part of their culture. So the fact that U.S. authorities are deporting people because they're Venezuelans with tattoos is based on misinformation, disinformation, no information.
Yeah.
The deportation of a group of Venezuelans to El Salvador. There's a lot in that one sentence I just said. First of all, a judge said the Trump administration was not allowed to do that. They did it anyway. And I'm not sure what is the precedent for deporting undocumented persons to prisons in other countries.
No, that's new territory. There's really no precedent for this. There's probably even not the legal ability to do so. First of all, because deportation is when somebody's caught in the U.S. without permission. If their country will take them back, they can be sent back to the country of origin. So that's what we normally refer to as deportation. The funny thing here is that Venezuela has indeed sent a lot of airplanes and paid for the flights themselves and sent airplanes into the U.S. to deport back their citizens. So it's not like they're not cooperating with the U.S. as they had done in the past. So they didn't know that Venezuelan citizens would be sent to El Salvador. And the Venezuelan authorities are very worried, and they have expressed their disagreement about these actions. So what's happening here is that the president of El Salvador is putting spaces in his prison for sale, for profit. The U.S. is paying $6 million for these people to be detained. So they'll be taking care of the logistics and all that. But more worrisome is like what's going to happen in Guantanamo, because they are outside of the U.S. jurisdiction and territory. The due process and the constitutional rights that everybody has in the U.S. no longer apply to these people back there. So Salvador can detain these people without having found them guilty. They're gonna have them doing forced labor for at least a year until this gets renewed. And so far, they're communicating with their families, something that will be illegal in the U.S. And there'll be a lot of complaints and lawsuits against the U.S. government. If this was happening in the U.S., the Trump administration can offshore this problem. But that itself is very worrisome because there was no due process. These people were not found guilty of any crime. And even then, it's not the case in the past that the U.S. can send our prisoners offshore. If we start doing that, that could become problematic, because then the U.S. could say, oh, it's cheaper to have our prisoners rather than have them outside of Chicago. We're going to send them somewhere in China because it's cheaper for us. Then it'll be very hard for the families to visit them. They will be in worse situations and conditions. So no, there's no precedent for this, and it sets a very bad precedent for us.
I mean, and for those who are not tracking this, Nayib Bukele, who's the president of El Salvador, is a certified dictator. I mean, the man, he's famous for so-called cleaning up the gangs, but he's done that by cleaning up everyone's rights. So you have no civil rights. And the fact that the current Republican administration is empowering this guy and giving him such a huge role on the world stage right now is also has other implications that I think are very problematic. If I can just take you and send you to a prison in a country that has no civil rights for you, then they profit, that continues to prop up that dictatorship by giving them yet another source of profit. A man who is taunting a U.S. judge on social media after the judge said they couldn't deport those Venezuelans, he posted on X, "Oopsie, too late," with the laughing emoji, which is then reposted by the Secretary of Doggone State, as well as the head of Doge and the President of the United States thanking this man online. There are implications that go way beyond concerns about immigration or citizenship conversations to human rights and, how we are now propping up dictatorships around the world. And these are things that I think are troubling questions we need to be asking. Dr. Ernesto Castañeda is my guest. We're talking immigration. You're welcome. If you have a question or comment, 800-920-1580 is the line in. I'm Dominique DiPrima, and this is KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
Febreze. As a rideshare driver, I love keeping my car smelling fresh and clean. So when I'm driving, I only trust Febreze car vent clips, featuring 3 distinct intensity settings, because it's that little touch that sets me apart. I can turn the intensity down for subtle freshness, or I can turn it up for when I want lots of scent. So whether it's set to low, medium, or high, with Febreze car, I know my car's going to smell amazing. Which keeps my driver rating right where it belongs. Picking up, Oscar!
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZzzQuil.
ZzzQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZzzQuil nights. Explore our products at ZzzQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
What's that sound? That's the sound of Downy Unstoppable scent beads going into your washing machine and giving your clothes freshness that lasts all day long. There it is again. It's like music to your ears, or more like music to your nose. That freshness is irresistible. Let's get a Downy Unstoppables bottle shake. And now a sniff solo. Nice. With Downy Unstoppables, you just toss, wash, wow, for all-day freshness.
We're with Bridget, whose husband won't be home for months, and whose daughter is due any day. We're with Mike, who's leaving home to protect his family and yours. We're with all service members and their families who need community, connection, and maybe a bit of magic. Are you with them? Learn more at uso.org today.
Are you having trouble hearing? Hearing loss can devastate the quality of your life. Now, there's an affordable fix for you or your loved one. Rated in the best hearing aids of 2024 by USA Today, Audion Hearing has the highest quality hearing aids at the lowest prices, just $189.
I actually like them better than my old $5,000 hearing aids.
I could not believe how my hearing and life changed.
Join over 500,000 happy customers by going to audionhearing.com. That's AUDIEN hearing.com.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues? Who are you? Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, there's so much going on in the immigration space, and I just don't know that we fully understand it, or I know I don't. And not just the impact for migrants or people seeking refugee status or undocumented persons, but for American civil rights. And I know there's some folks in the chat saying that, this is a Hispanic problem, or that it doesn't apply to us, and I don't agree with that. So I'm just putting that out there. We're talking with Dr. Ernesto Castañeda. He's a director of the Center for Latin American and Latino Studies in the Immigration Lab and a professor at American University in Washington, D.C. I wanted to ask you about this 1798 law that the president used initially to deport those Venezuelans, called the Alien Enemies Act. It's a law that says that in wartime, a president gets all kinds of extra powers to deport people. I believe the last time it was used was when they interred Japanese Americans and put them in concentration camps here in the United States during World War II. And that's, what the judge kind of shut down. It did not stop the president from carrying through on this, and I don't expect them to back down from this this formula of using this 1798 law. How do you see that? How do you see the Alien Enemies Act and the potential uses for it, and sort of the broader implications?
That's right, Dominique. You explained it very well. This is an old law used when the president then was afraid of foreign invasion. It was only used in the past during World War I, World War II, and in the 18th century. But what it shows is that the Trump administration is looking for excuses and looking everywhere in the laws for avenues to get people apprehended, imprisoned, detained with no rights, because so they can deport more people faster, and they don't have to put them in front of a judge and due process. Partly because the judge can protect them, they can allow them to apply for asylum, to stay here if they have family members, if they have a clean record, or apply for asylum, and they don't want people to do that. So this Alien Enemies Act, he declared it one of his executive orders on January 20th when he took over again as president. And then this past Saturday, he signed it again in the morning very quietly in order for him to send these people under these very special circumstances to El Salvador, and also one flight to Honduras. But as you well said, the U.S. is not at war without anyone at this moment. We haven't and we shouldn't declare war against Venezuela. So it doesn't apply. In the past, Japanese were detained, foreign-born, but also their U.S.-born wives and children, and put in detention camps for a long time because the U.S. was at war with Japan during World War II. So that was the rationale, and it's a very obscure moment in U.S. history because many of them were not collaborating with Japanese government. They were not spies. They were not going to raise in arms and try to fight attack from within, which was the rationale at the time. But right now we don't have that. So the Trump administration has done these funny things looking at old laws. And by the way, that's what they did during the pandemic, invoking for the first time Title 42 to ban anybody from coming during the pandemic that was trying to ask for asylum from abroad. So it worked back then for Stephen Miller. So he went again and looked at these old laws to see what we could apply right now to get people, even foreigners, strip them of the constitutional rights and deport them in a faster, expedited fashion. So what they did is invoke this Alien Enemies Act at the same time that they declared gangs like Tren de Aragua, that they declare Mexican cartels, Mara Salvatrucha from El Salvador, as transnational gangs, as terrorist organizations, which they are not. They are horrible organized crime enterprises, yes, but their purpose is not to take over control of the government in the U.S. And that's the actual definition of a terrorist organization that have an ideological goal of taking power and changing how things run. That's not what they are trying to do. But then by labeling people from those countries and those gangs as enemies of the state, then they think they can deport them. But the judges are not buying these, as you said, so they're stopping them. But the Trump administration says that they don't have to listen to the courts and they can do whatever they want anyway. So it's a big game of pretense. But also, as you were saying, Dominic, is correct. If they can do that to undocumented people because supposedly they are part of gangs and they are labeled as terrorists, they also can do it to people that have green cards and are legal permanent residents of the U.S. We've seen that people speaking against the government or engaging in public speech that the government doesn't like, they're being detained and put on the deportation procedures. The same thing could happen next to U.S. citizens that are speaking against the government. They could also be labeled as terrorists. They could be labeled as enemies of the state. There's nothing then preventing the Trump administration from labeling local gangs, local groups, local organizations as terrorists and also imprison them without due process. So something that starts with people that we may think have less rights is very easy for it to encroach and then impact legal citizens of the U.S., whatever the background may be.
Let's go to Fahima calling us from Washington, D.C. Good morning, Fahima.
Donnie and K Pasa, Dominique, and greetings to your guests. I'm listening, and I think I did put in the comment that this chaos is very similar to to the chaos with the child separation and not having any documentation of a trace during the last administration. But more importantly, I wanted to say, the people are saying, I don't care, it's them, we don't need them, and hateful things like that. This administration is talking about sending American prisoners to El Salvador as well. And as you know, that we are often criminalized, and the most folks who are falsely accused. And it's just reminiscent of that poem, and I'm not going to read the whole piece, but it says, first they came for the socialists, but I wasn't a socialist, and at the end of the day, there was no one left for me. And this was a person who was a Nazi sympathizer who ended up realizing that at one point you're othering people, and then it was your turn. So I would caution these people with the hateful rhetoric. Who cares? We don't need them. It's not our problem. That we can very well be next. And I'll just land with this. You might want to bring on Nana Jumfrey, who's Black Alliance for Just Immigration, so that people can realize the impact and it can resonate. And maybe they'll have an empathy that it's happening to Black immigrants, and it can happen to us too.
I mean,
and
of course, Nana Jumfrey's been on the show many times talking about just that.
Yeah, of course. But in terms of this new rendition, rendition of sending prisoners to El Salvador. And I just want to say peace and blessings to your guest who's in my neck of the woods. And my heart goes out to you in this situation.
Thank you, Fahima. Any response to what the caller said, Dr. Castaneda?
Thank you so much. Yes, I fully agree. Indeed, Bukele of El Salvador, he offered to Secretary of State Marco Rubio to take in U.S. citizens in his prison. So yes, this could apply later for African Americans who are over-criminalized, who have high incarceration rates that don't represent the limits of criminality. So we know there's a lot of racial profiling already in the U.S. Prison system. We also know that the U.S. has one of the highest per capita incarceration rates in the world, and now El Salvador is getting up there in trying to take away number one. So these two countries working together is very dangerous for the well-being of anybody that may be in prison justly or unjustly. And also this prison that the people were sent to is called the CICOT in Spanish, and they call it a terrorism center. So it's what they were trying to do in Guantanamo, but it's going to be more efficient and cheaper. But people are put in prisons in groups. They are they cut their hair as soon as they come in. They are humiliated. It's not a regular prison. The inmates have no rights. They are presumed to be guilty continuously, and they are treated in a very, 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 very bad way, deprived from food. There's a lot of things that would be unconstitutional and illegal in the U.S. that they are doing in El Salvador, which we also know from people in El Salvador that they have put a lot of innocent people in those prisons just because they happen to be talking to somebody that may have been in a gang at that moment, and they raid them together. So yes, very, very dangerous and very problematic for all.
Dr. Ernesto Castañeda is my guest. We'll continue the conversation after news, traffic, and sports, only right here.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
I'm Alexandria Ikamoni with 4 things you should know from BIN News. The Pentagon may be removing nearly 60,000 civilian jobs affecting many Black people over the next few months. A senior defense official said the job cuts will hopefully happen via voluntary resignation and not by replacing workers who leave. Officials in Louisiana say a Black inmate has been executed using nitrogen gas. Jesse Hoffman's death was the first time in state history an inmate has been executed by nitrogen gas. Black rapper NBA Youngboy is reportedly being accused of getting into a fight behind bars with another inmate. It's reported he was put in solitary confinement. And New York's LaGuardia Airport is being recognized as the best airport in the nation by Forbes Travel Guide. The hub, once known as the nation's worst airport and dubbed like a third world country by then-President Biden, underwent an $8 billion transformation. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
Running out of hot water? Water Heaters Only makes replacing your water heater easy. With one call and great pricing, Water Heaters Only can have you back in hot water the same day, within hours of your call. Visit waterheatersonly.com. That's waterheatersonly.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Clippers had a belief game last night. The kind of game where the players believe they can beat anybody when they play like they did against the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Clippers beat the team with the NBA's best record, 132-119 at the Intuit Dome in Inglewood. 4 straight win for the Clippers. A game-high 33 points from Kawhi Leonard. Ivica Zubac had 28 points and 20 rebounds. The stat of the night comes from Clippers guard Bogdan Bogdanovic. He was 8 for 8 from the floor, including 4 for 4 on three-pointers. He finished with 20 points and 7 assists off the bench. The Alabama State men's basketball team won an NCAA tournament game for the first time in school history. A last-second layup by Amar Knox lifted the HBCU school to a 70-68 win over St. Francis of Pennsylvania. Alabama State advances to play Auburn, the number 1 seed in the South Regional, on Friday. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
The revolution will not be televised.
What's up? It is Killer Mike, also known as Michael Render, and I'm encouraging you to listen to more, not less, of Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Senator Nina Turner on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Eaton Canyon fire devastated many black families in Altadena, taking more than just homes. It took memories, legacies, and generational wealth. The heart of a black community is now in jeopardy, but Justice Coalition, led by Gage and King LA Lawyers for the People, are here to help. If you've lost your home, we are standing by to hold insurance companies and utilities accountable for the damage caused. When the community suffers, we all suffer. Together, we can rebuild what was lost. Your recovery starts today. Call 626-429-1259. That's 626-429-1259. Or visit www.eatonfirelawyers.net. Justice Coalition, Gage and King, LA Lawyers for the People. We got you. Call 626-429-1259. Visit www.eatonfirelawyers.net. Again, 626-429-1259. This is attorney advertising. Past results do not guarantee future outcomes. Legal representation is provided by licensed attorneys.
Stories are power. The Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project is an effort to collect, preserve, and amplify stories of black land loss. It will form an invaluable resource for scholars, authors, historians, educators, storytellers, policymakers, and change agents who wrestle with issues of restitution, reparations, racial inequality in home ownership, and the racial wealth gap. Through documenting stories of black land loss, the archive will help demonstrate the magnitude of what black families have lost and will continue the national dialogue to encourage paths to restitution, rebuilding, and healing. Support the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project by visiting www.blacklandlost.org or by donating at www.blacklandlost.org/donate. Spread the word to inspire awareness, activism, leadership, and change. And join us in making a lasting impact. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for progressive talk radio. Be heard. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
He's written for the Washington Post, the LA Times, the Chicago Tribune, the Hill, City Lab, Medium, and more. He's the director of the Center for Latin American and Latino Studies and the Immigration Lab, and a full professor at American University. Dr. Ernesto Castañeda is my guest. So we know that the data shows us that actually the highest deportation levels we saw were under the Obama administration. I'm not sure what the numbers are right now under the Trump administration. And here's my question. I feel like they promised that they were going to deport, quote unquote, millions of criminals roaming our country immediately. And the fact is there were no millions of criminals, as you pointed out earlier in the show. If you're a criminal and you've been caught by ICE, you were already in prison or deported. So there weren't that many of those. So in order to live up to the promise of the campaign or appear to be living up to it, they have to deport people who aren't criminals. They have to deport all kinds of random people, folks that typically would not have been even approached in the past, like the kidney specialist who had a visa, the professor who was recently deported. Do you think that the deportation numbers are up, or is it just that we're seeing more aggressive and scary tactics?
Very good question. So indeed, Obama still has the record of most deportations during any administration. He and Biden deported more people during their presidencies than Trump did during his first presidency. Now, President Barack Obama did it under the false condition or pretense of the Republicans that if the number of undocumented people went down and the border was, quote unquote, under control, there could be negotiations to regularize the people here so they didn't have to be afraid of deportation every day and they could continue working, paying taxes, etc. That did not happen. But what we know from the data is that during the Obama administration, the largest number of people detained and deported were not criminals either, but were actually brown and black people, men in working age were the ones that were deported the most back to the Caribbean, Africa, and Latin America. So they were the people that were profiled by the authorities, by ICE. We see a return to that. During the Biden administration, there were a lot of people that were deported, but they were mainly people that were trying to enter from Haiti and from around the world, and they would be caught right after entry in the U.S.-Mexico border. And if they didn't have the case to make an asylum petition, many of them, millions, were deported back to their countries. So that's what it was relatively easy, we can say so, for Biden to keep deportation numbers high. He didn't get any credit for that, even for people that were criticizing that we had an open border, which is not true. But Biden was very respectful of schools, hospitals, churches, and communities for people that were working here. He was not putting a high priority in deported people from the interior of the U.S., from our American cities and communities. It was more the recently arrived. And people with deportation orders, people that committed crimes, that was continuing like normal. But right now, very few people talk about it, but because Mexico has enforced so much to stop the arrival of immigrants at the border, or there will be more tariffs and more threats. And because Biden changed the ability to ask for asylum at the border, the people arriving at the U.S.-Mexico border trying to pass undetected is very, very, very low. So there are very few people to deport from the border. So indeed, Dominique, now the Trump administration is looking for people all over the place in order to keep their numbers high and to keep this campaign promise of deporting millions, which is not easy because immigrants are part of our communities. They're in our classrooms, in our sports teams, in our communities. They start the businesses that we go to. So it's very hard to detain. That's what these activists, Janet, that you were asking me about earlier, she's been in the United States for decades, and she had faced deportation proceedings in the past. So she hid in a church to ask for sanctuary because ICE wouldn't enter to the church to apprehend her. But then she left the church in 2020, and she had been living her life outside in the streets again in Aurora, Colorado. And then she was detained, and she will be deported. But she doesn't have any criminal record. And
I think also Biden had given her a stay of deportation during
Correct.
Yeah, but I guess that's null and void. So that's what I've been suspecting, is that their numbers may not match even the Obama numbers, even though they were claiming they were going to deport millions. And so they're desperately just grabbing people.
Right.
And you know, anybody could be subject to that. I was looking at this article in The Guardian, which really talks about how much discretion is a part of our immigration policy, meaning if I'm an ICE official, it's up to me whether I'm going to detain you or not. To a large degree, it's not necessarily clearly defined by the law or by any other kind of metrics. And so, you know, I was reading about this case of this young Canadian woman. She's white. She was detained almost 2 weeks because an ICE official decided that her visa application was shady. Another guy who she had a work visa. Another guy, a German guy who had been here for many years and had a visa, was also detained and he said criminally detained and interrogated. And so it seems like because of the sort of attitude and policies of the current Republican administration under Trump, that these folks are getting emboldened, and you just don't know who could be detained or interrogated or held indefinitely. This is supposed to be non-punitive, but it's basically a jail, right?
Yes, exactly. A jail, but before being found guilty of any crime, so it doesn't count as a punishment. So even if somebody is found guilty of having done something, the time they spend in immigration detention doesn't count towards their prison sentence. So it's not counted as punishment, but it is very punishing in the conditions. It's basically a jail indeed.
I mean, you can't leave, and
no,
you can't leave. Your life is to stop, and that seems very punitive to me. But at this point, we don't know. I mean, because it's so discretionary, I guess what I'm saying is, what do you think the impact of just the attitude of a Marco Rubio or who is our Secretary of State or our president is having on the enforcement of these arbitrary searches, seizures, detentions?
Yes, at the end of the day, this is completely discretionary, and it depends on the immigration officer at the airport or in the border, on the ICE agents, what they're going to do with somebody they find in the search for somebody else in the field. It's going to depend on the police officer if they want to call ICE and get immigration involved or not. So it gives a lot of power to police officers on the ground without clear guidelines. So that was one of the issues that Biden administration and Obama administrations had, that they would have a set of priority for deportation. That was for people that have committed crimes and all these things. But then the people on the ground would not always follow. They would disregard and racially profile people. But as you were saying correctly, Dominique, now with the rhetoric from the Trump administration, you are giving even more discretion to ICE agents, Border Patrol agents, many of them who are being found because of the things they post online or the groups that are part of, that they are openly white nationalists. So many of them have a very racist bias. So no wonder they're going to profile Black and brown people, Afro-Latinos, even if they are born in the U.S., even if they are from Puerto Rico and living in the U.S., therefore citizens. They've been detaining them and depriving them from their liberty for hours or days without any recourse until some of them, like the Canadian example you were giving, the German, they were freed and then they're speaking. But many of these people are afraid and they won't talk. And many of them may still be detained, and we're not hearing from them. And again, once they start with the foreigners, they could detain activists that are U.S. citizens. They can detain community members for a while just to scare them and say, "Oh, sorry, I thought you were an immigrant, so therefore we took you for a few days."
And you don't get to call a lawyer. You don't. It's terrifying, actually. When we come forward, when we continue this conversation, I want to get your thought on this list. The Trump administration says they're considering targeting the citizens of up to 43 countries as part of their new travel ban. There's a red, orange, and yellow list, and what that list means for immigration, visa, obtention of visa, and just a general policy in our country. Even as one lawmaker in France is calling for the U.S. to return the Statue of Liberty because he says we no longer live up to the statements on Lady Liberty. We'll continue this conversation with Dr. Castañeda when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
They say the hardest part of getting something done is getting started. Well, we did that 30 years ago when California first took on the tobacco industry. Now, smoking is down 60%, lung cancer 42%. A couple of our cities have already ended tobacco sales. A California without big tobacco isn't just possible, it's already happening. See our progress at undo.org.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. The Live Your Life organization mentors young women, helping them break negative mindsets and see beyond their surroundings. Through career exposure and hands-on training, they're encouraged to think big, stay focused, and make positive choices. Founded by Nikisha Mama Boo Smith, who transformed her life to become a community leader. Live Your Life is changing lives, but they need your help. They're raising funds to keep their new building open and expand their program. Your donations will support food, clothes, hygiene products, and holiday giveaways. Visit liveyourlife32.com. That's LIVEYOLIFE32.com to help today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
Yeah, one of the alarming but not surprising developments on immigration is a draft list of proposed travel ban countries, up to 43 of those. Ernesto Castañeda is my guest, director of the Center for Latin American and Latino Studies and the Immigration Lab. He's a professor at American University in Washington, D.C. This is a long list. They say it could be added to. Some folks may be taken off. There's a red, which is all travel is banned from those. There's an orange, which says visas sharply restricted, meaning business people and rich people could come, but regular immigrants and tourists, not so much. And then the yellow is 60 days to address concerns. Not quite sure what that means, but that includes almost every African country on the yellow list.
Yeah.
What do you think of this?
Exactly, Dominic. It's very problematic. We see a lot of issues here. As you said, the yellow list that is in pending, but probably they're going to be end up being banned. Is mainly in countries in Africa, so we see a trend there. This started something against Muslims. It has expanded to include other people. But yeah, it's very interesting. Afghanistan is in the red list. Nobody would be allowed to come into this country. But we still know that there were people that were helping U.S. forces with their tasks in Afghanistan that are still trying to come to the U.S. because they're on their risk. Their lives are at risk. In Afghanistan now, governed by the Taliban, so they may be in Pakistan or in Iran, escaping for their lives, asking refuge, or trying to reunite with family members in the U.S. They wouldn't be allowed to do so. Very few people coming from North Korea or Libya. But then Venezuela is in a crisis, in an economic, political, social crisis. So millions of people have left Venezuela. Some of them were trying to find a job in the U.S. after they were not able to do so in Latin America. So now the door will be shut for them. on their class basis. But then it's very interesting in the orange, in the mid-level, we have countries like Russia, which it says clearly that it will be close to regular people, but if you are rich, so if you are
oligarchs only, yes,
you're allowed. But if you are deflecting the army service from fighting Ukrainians, you wouldn't be allowed in anymore. So very, very funny way to do international policy.
And Haiti, of course, is on the orange list. Yeah. So unless you're rich, you can't come in. Eritrea, Belarus. But, I mean, Sierra Leone, really? It's very interesting that they don't have Burkina Faso on here, but they do have Sierra Leone. And then, as I said, the yellow list contains almost every African country, including Chad, Cape Verde, Cameroon, Republic of Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea. A lot of these I've been to. I've been to Gambia, Liberia, Malawi, Mali, Mauritania. I mean, it's pretty much, Zimbabwe, of course. It's weird that Venezuela's on here in a way because you have people that are fleeing a government that the United States is at odds with. Typically, we like to welcome people from those countries. They tend to be more conservative and more in alignment with the sort of politics of the current Republican administration.
Correct. Same with Cuba. That was in a long-held tradition.
Cuba's on the red list now. No more dry feet or whatever that policy was. You can just show up. Now Cubans are banned. Yeah.
That's a drastic change. And it's amazing that Rubio is going along with this because his family escaped the dictators before the Castro regime in Cuba. And there was this, dry food, wet food. As long as you touch the U.S., you will be allowed in and you're going to be deported. And after a year of being here, any Cuban will be able to regularize his status. That's why the Cuban population is doing so well because they are one of the few populations that are able to get papers. But if you're Haitian, escaping also like objective political, economic, environmental issues happening in the island. If you come to the U.S., you won't be allowed to come in anymore, not ask for asylum. And at the same time that they're ending the temporary protected status for Haitians in some months. And let's remember that according to PolitiFact, the number one lie of 2024 and the presidential campaigns was this lie that Haitian origin immigrants were eating cats and dogs. We forgot that, but that was a racist trope that played along a lot during the campaign that was targeting people from Haiti and had these racial connotations. And again, we see them in these lists that are going to be even harder for them to come here.
Yeah, I think that one thing I hope we'll get a little bit more sophisticated about is the fact that this idea, I had a caller earlier today who said, well, the reason we need to cut Medicaid is because we're giving free health care to all these immigrants, which is actually illegal in 49 states. The only state that does that is California. And again, when Elon Musk moves to cut Social Security, which is not a handout or an entitlement, but something we've invested in our entire working careers, he uses the excuse that undocumented immigrants are getting Social Security. In fact, most of those would have fake Social Security numbers that would be sort of funneling money into a system that they would never hope to get a dime out of. I hope we can get more sophisticated about not allowing elected officials to use immigration as an excuse for every single terrible policy that's going to have bad impacts on the people that live here, as well as undocumented persons.
That is correct. We have to inform ourselves better because politicians have used stereotypes and lies about immigrants for a long time to divide us and to get away with giving tax cuts to the rich. And it is indeed a fact that undocumented immigrants pay to the Social Security system, but they're not allowed to take Social Security payments once they retire because of their status. And as you say, many of them use false Social Security numbers, so they are contributing to the system and subsidizing it in part, and they cannot take benefits. Immigrants overall pay more taxes than they get in benefits, so they're helping everybody. And then for the people commenting that we shouldn't care, this only about Latino people or foreign-born people, not about our communities. We're in this together, and the economy in the U.S. has become very dependent to a degree on immigrant labor, whether scientists, engineers, but also low-wage laborers. Sometimes there's competition, but fortunately, unemployment rates for Black and Latinos are relatively low right now. So there's not really a competition for jobs. There's a 1.5 job opening per every worker looking for a job. Sometimes it requires moving around, which is hard. But immigrants are a contribution to the economy. And because right now we are having as around the same number of people passing as babies being born overall, we need people from other countries to keep our population growing. Because if we don't have that population growth, then the economy cannot grow. So if we deport all these people and we don't let anybody anymore come from Venezuela, Haiti, Cuba, Africa, then that means that our economy is going to contract, our population is going to contract, and the economy is going to get weaker, and it's going to impact all of us. We're going to have to pay more for the food that we buy, for the services that we consume. So therefore, it's going to have a direct impact on the African-American community.
Mm. Well, just about out of time here, Dr. Castañeda. What thought would you like to leave us to ponder today?
Yes, that we shouldn't believe all the statements that some politicians make about the supposedly immigrants taking advantage of the U.S. It is not true. It's let's educate ourselves. There's a lot of lies. Immigration is very complex in terms of the history of it, the laws. So it takes programs like these. There's a lot of books out there to kind of know more the realities about immigration, so that we cannot let any more politicians use immigration to divide us. Because at the end, what is good for immigrants is good for everybody else. So when people ask me, what is a good way to help immigrants, I say, invest more in public schools, invest more in public housing, invest more in parks. That's going to help American citizens that need it, and also immigrants, because we go to the same school, we're in the same neighborhoods. So the opposite from what Dodge is doing right now, trying to threaten Medicaid, Social Security number, and public programs, that's not going to help anyone but the very, very, very rich amongst us.
Mm. Well said, Dr. Castañeda. How can we follow your work?
Yes, I am in Blue Sky on the Dr. Ernesto Castañeda. I'm the most active there. I love that. But I'm also on Instagram. I am on LinkedIn. Most places, if you're still using X, I'm there. I don't post very often, but you can follow me there. And read my work. We also have blogs. We have op-eds. We have things that are very easy to read for the general public. So please look me up, Ernesto Castañeda, my website and my lab and my center. We try to have a public presence to educate the public, so please follow us.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Dominique. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, it was a pleasure having you on as well. You guys know that Tavis Smiley's up next. He's got a full lineup for you today. And I'm going to leave you with a quote from James Baldwin. He says, "It is certain in any case that ignorance, allied with power, is the most ferocious enemy that justice can have." Until tomorrow, one love.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Alexandria Ikamoni with 4 things you should know from BIN News. The Pentagon may be removing nearly 60,000 civilian jobs, affecting many black people, over the next few months. A senior defense official said the job cuts will hopefully happen via voluntary resignation and not by replacing workers who leave. Officials in Louisiana say a black inmate has been executed using nitrogen gas. Jesse Hoffman's death was the first time in state history an inmate has been executed by nitrogen gas. Black rapper NBA Youngboy is reportedly being accused of getting into a fight behind bars with another inmate. It's reported he was put in solitary confinement. And New York's LaGuardia Airport is being recognized as the best airport in the nation by Forbes Travel Guide. The hub, once known as the nation's worst airport and dubbed like a third world country by then-President Biden, underwent an $8 billion transformation. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
Running out of hot water? Water Heaters Only makes replacing your water heater easy. With one call and great pricing, Water Heaters Only can have you back in hot water the same day, within hours of your call. Visit waterheatersonly.com. That's waterheatersonly.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The kind of game where the players believe they can beat anybody when they play like they did against the Cleveland Cavaliers.